So we're here to solve this cross of streams by Freddie Hand. It has a 1 to 5 theme, which you'll see twice across the top, and it's a good addition to the rest of this week that had a lot of these series clues. And this is the natural evolution. The last puzzle of this form is 1 to 4, and this is one larger, 1 to 5. The question mark 5 question mark columns are certainly the places to start. It should be familiar to you all by now, but where we've got like a minimum packing that looks like this and a maximum packing looks like this, the typical way to think about this is 9 cells are accounted for, question mark of 1 plus a gap, 5 plus a gap plus 1 more. So 9 in a column that's 10 large means there's 1 degree of freedom. So 4 of the 5 cells, 5 minus 1 equals 4, must be specified. And actually these 4 in the center of these columns will always have to be part of a 5. If none of those cells were used, you can't put a 5 in the grid and get the rest of the column to work out. Those large groups, we're going to look right next to them. There are 2 spots where I could put in 4 cells, right at the top, right at the bottom, and those will work symmetrically, but on this right side there's a single question mark above this, which means I can't use this top 4. I need a group above the 4, so I have to start in the bottom here. Mark these in, it means the 5 comes up here. This is the last cell for that remaining group. This cell is going to be part of this question mark, and it can come down as many as 2 more cells, but I can't take these. We're just doing good accounting of this question mark and this 4. Pivoting to the rows, I see this row of 5 question marks looks pretty good. It starts with 9 cells accounted for, 1 degree of freedom, but this question mark on the far right is now equal to a 2, so that's 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, fully specified as 10 cells. Marks this in. I just marked off this cell, which I said might be key for this 4 clue, so the bottom option is now gone for. It's got to use the top option. That puts in the bottom of this 5 and puts in another option up top. I haven't looked at this space yet, but actually this question mark 3, 2 coming from the right is also pretty good. After this is marked in, there were 8 cells left over, and 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus 1 is 7, so there's 1 degree of freedom. So if I came in, let's put on edge helper, and let's say I hadn't actually marked these yet. Normal way to think about this is I need to have a gap. If there's 1 degree of freedom, I then have to take these cells as part of the 3. I have a gap, I take this cell. So I could have marked this in the grid. Coming back to where I actually had gotten this group of 4 in, I actually now know for sure the 3 is here, the 2 is there. Mark those in. That now completes this row fully. The next row actually now also looks interesting, in part because there are no asterisks near this row. There are 2 groups in total. There's this group, which looks like it's probably going to be the question mark, and then there's going to need to be some group that uses one of these 2 cells to keep this upper right part of the grid connected. So this is going to be the 2. Note if it takes this cell, it takes this as well. If it takes this cell, it could take this, but this is always part of the 2. That means this is a question mark, and that means I can't take this cell. This is a question mark and keep going left, but I can only go left as far as this cell, so I can't take this one. That now means for connectivity, this cell is used and is connected over to be the question mark, and the 2 is going to form where we had it. So we've got some limits starting to grow into the grid. I'm going to shift from rows to columns now because we made some headway over here, and thinking about this question mark 3 question mark, the question mark's up top. Next group is 3 large, but if I took this cell and shaded it down, it would get to be 2 large before 4 at that stage. So the 3 is here, and it does use this cell. It could be here or here, but we need to have a gap and then a single or 2 cells for the bottom question mark clue. So the 3 always uses this cell. Coming 1 column over, I've got this top question mark group. Down below I can put this second question mark group, but I can't put the 2 group in at the same time as another group. So the 2 is here, or it's here, but this cell is always part of the 2. You always get a gap. So we've got some mapping of what's going on here to work off of. Not seeing more right now from the columns. Actually, maybe there's 1 column over here I can work off, which is this question mark 3 question mark. Notice that this bottom space can have the single question mark, but we need to get a group of 3, and it's got to start as early as this, and this is not part of the group of 3, it's part of the top clue. So there's exactly these 3 cells for the 3. Question mark is up above. Looks fine for where it's set. And this bottom group is going to take just a single of these cells. We can't take more than 2 of them. So I'm just going to come in and mark these edges, which will hopefully be helpful. I'm actually seeing around this question mark 1 question mark, we've got the next group to be shaded in will only take 1 cell. So at least at the top of these, we can mark some of these edges in, which are going to be helpful, I'm pretty sure, as we come back to them. So looking now, instead of this column, looking over at the bottom, this 2 question mark clue's got a lot of space for it. The 3 is a lot of space for it, but this 3 with a 1 looks like an interesting row. The 1 could be this group we have right on the right, or it could be somewhere else, like here. But notice that the 3 is never part of this right side of the grid, because there needs to be a 1 group to the right of it, so the 3 is on the left. That puts in these cells. It forces this to be the gap, puts the 3 up top, that shades in this, forces this to be the shade for the 2 and the gap below. So these actually come in quite quickly, and they now start to isolate these cells away from the top of the grid. So this looks like something we can really use quickly, and that's because this first column, question mark 1 question mark, it needs a singleton next. This could be the singleton, this could be the singleton, this down here cannot be the singleton. So there will have to be a gap between this group and a group above, and that means for connection this has to come down. It also means this group of 5 cells, it will get a 6th, also has to come through this channel, and that now quickly causes an issue with this clue. It used to be that this could be the 1 on its own, but now we see it has to join in here. That means there's a gap and a singleton, and these are all marked. These are clear. So for connection, there's not as much to do now in this corner, but let's pop back up to the top. And we haven't looked at this 3rd or 4th row yet, but with all these unused cells marked, there's one group which is here, a second group which will be in these white cells, and then this will be the 1 and always be the 1. So we have to shade at least one of these cells. Notice that if I can't come down through this column, I always shade this cell. This row below it has 1 group, 2 group, 3 group, 4 group, so to stay that way it needs a gap here. And what that now means is when I come back and think about connectivity, to get out of this corner I've got to come through this cell, which finishes the 2, comes through this group. For connectivity I still have to come down and take this cell, because I can't come through this channel with the edges I've already marked from the clues above. That means I come over here and take this cell still for connectivity. That finishes this group of 2 size, so I take this to still continue with connectivity. Now I may or may not have taken the 1 clue, but notice this group in the bottom only gets connected if I come through one of these channels. This won't be the cell I come through as I come through this or through this. Notice if I came this way, I can't make a group of 1 fit into the grid, so this is not the channel we use. This is the channel we use. That means that we're going to take at least one of these cells, so this isn't used, and we've got these in the grid, but we don't have the top, this last question mark filled yet. We also haven't yet looked at this question mark 2 clue, and recognizing this group isn't the 2. Where else does a 2 go in the grid if it's not using the cell? This is a possible 2, but it would mark off groups. This is not a 2, this is a 2, this is the only 2 I see. And so this goes in the grid. We're going to need one more group to its left, but for connection, let's just start by marking these in. We need to get a 3. That's this group. Still for connection, need to put this in. We need a 3 over here. We need a 1 over on this side, so these are marked into the grid. For connection, we take this cell. We need some cell to the left of this too, so we always take this, but where we've got 3 clues already used here, we can't use that cell, and we do need to get a last group over in this corner piece. So we get all the way through the grid. Pretty good workout, used a lot of different cross-the-stream steps throughout. It started like a lot of puzzles with the large digits and conflicts around them, but by the end we were really pivoting row into column into row into column, again these little cells, cells like this that influence cells like this that influence cells coming across. I think this tight channel is pretty key to understand. Once we have this 1 clue coming from the top, we can't jump through a set of these cells, so we have to come through others to make this work out, and that got this question mark 2 question mark filled in. So this notation style of putting these marks on borders may help. I do it a lot in pencil, and you can turn it on in the pen-pal interface if that's useful for you and other cross-the-streams puzzles. So I hope you got something through this solving video. Thanks, Freddie, for the challenging puzzle, and we'll see you again soon.